Evie's heels clicked against the pavement as she briskly walked down the busy New York streets on her way home from the office. It had been a long day filled with crying infants and stubborn toddlers, but she loved her job as a preschool teacher. The crisp October air nipped at Evie's cheeks, the city lights just starting to flicker on as dusk settled. Pulling her coat tighter, Evie's mind wandered to Noah, as it often did lately. She reminisced about their 3 blissful years together before he was deployed overseas. The way his smile made her knees weak, their weekend escapes from the city, and the passion that would ignite with just a single touch. It had been almost unbearable when he left for war, both of them distraught as they said goodbye at Grand Central Station. The last 3 years had crawled by in his absence. Her days occupied with teaching, chatting with friends, and writing Noah letters. The nights were always the hardest, consumed by fitful sleep and dreams of him coming home. The war had ended, but with no word from Noah, each passing day dimmed Evie's hopes of ever seeing him again. Lost in thought, Evie didn't notice the man standing under a pool of light at the street corner ahead. As she drew nearer, the man looked up and their eyes locked. Evie stopped short, almost losing her footing. Noah. He was really standing there just half a block away. Her heart pounded wildly in her chest. Without thinking, Evie broke into a run, Noah rushing toward her through the crowd. They collided in a fierce embrace right there on the sidewalk. Evie. My darling Evie, Noah murmured into her hair as he held her tight. She clung to him, tears of joy running down her cheeks. After all this time, he had made it back to her. Noah drew back and cupped her face in his hands. I thought I'd never see you again, he said, his voice strained with emotion. Evie reached up to pull his lips toward hers, kissing him deeply and tenderly. The familiar spark was still there, burning brighter than ever. For just a moment, the bustling New York streets and crowds faded away. It was just the two of them, together once more. All the questions could come later. Right now, only their reunited love mattered. Evie tucked her arm in Noah's as they strolled together, still in a daze. She led them to a small, cozy cafe not far away. The warm interior embraced them in contrast to the chill outside. Settling into a corner booth with steaming mugs, an uncomfortable silence descended. Their reunion high had faded, leaving uncertainty about how to pick up where they left off. Finally, Evie spoke up. I want to hear all about the past 3 years. Tell me everything. Noah sighed but gave her a small smile. He launched into stories of his military training, the long days in hot deserts, and the bonds formed with his fellow soldiers. She listened intently, laughing when a funny story arose but also tearing up at the hardships he endured. When he described the day his convoy was attacked, his eyes grew dark with the painful memories. Evie covered his hand with hers in comfort. By the time he got to coming home and transitioning to civilian life, the heaviness in his voice had lifted. Evie then filled Noah in on her last 3 years. She talked about the kids in her preschool class, her close friends, and her promotions at work. They laughed over silly anecdotes and fun adventures around the city with her friends. Underneath, though, was a wistfulness for all the moments they had missed together. After several more nostalgic stories, Evie decided they needed something lighter. She launched into the epic saga of her disastrous attempt at a souffle that resulted in a smoking oven and visit from the fire department. Noah threw his head back laughing. It felt good, like things of the past were finally being brought into the present. The years apart still lingered between them, but sharing their stories helped bridge the gap. Taking her hands in his, Noah's eyes were serious again. I know we can't pick up exactly where we left off, Evie. Too much has happened. But I want to figure out where we go from here. I'm ready if you are. Evie squeezed his hands, her heart swelling with optimism. Me too, Noah. As long as we're together. The sun sank below the New York skyline as Evie and Noah strolled through Central Park, leaves crunching under their feet. After a delicious dinner at a fancy French restaurant, they had decided to walk it off and continue their night. Being surrounded by the lush nature within the city reminded them both of all the weekends they used to escape here together. They traded memories of picnics and concerts, boat rides, and candlelit dinners under the stars. Noah shyly reached for Evie's hand as they walked. She glanced up at him with a soft smile, intertwining their fingers. Even that simple touch brought the butterflies back to her stomach. As darkness fell, the lampposts bathed the park in a romantic glow. Noah led them off the path toward Bow Bridge, one of their favorite spots. The lights of the city reflected off the tranquil water as he gazed deeply into Evie's eyes. "You're just as beautiful as the first time I saw you," he murmured, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She melted into his arms as they kissed with 3 years of pent-up longing. Pulling back breathless, Evie took his hand again. "Come on, let's go for a boat ride." Noah helped her climb delicately into one of the rowboats on the lake. As he rowed them around, the tension that had lingered between them all evening finally dissolved. Laughter echoed across the water as they reminisced late into the night. The stresses of readjusting no longer seemed to matter here in their own private world. When Noah rowed them back to shore, the new closeness and understanding between them was palpable. As they walked hand in hand out of the park, Evie knew without a doubt that their relationship was blossoming once again. Over the next few weeks, Noah settled back into life in New York City. He moved into Evie's cozy apartment in the West Village that would now be their shared home. Though the adjustment wasn't always easy, Evie stayed patient and supportive. Having Noah back in her world made Evie beam with joy. She wanted him to feel the same comfort and belonging. One night she invited some of her closest friends over to meet him. Nerves gave way to laughter as they swapped stories late into the evening. Noah's army buddies soon visited as well, helping him maintain the connections he had made. Evie was proud to see him integrating the old and new parts of his life. Slowly but surely, the fragmented pieces were coming back together. At the end of a long work week, Evie surprised Noah with tickets to see a new hit Broadway musical. Walking hand in hand through Times Square in their finest evening wear made the city feel magical. Noah couldn't take his eyes off Evie, saying she was the real star of the night. After the show, they strolled through the neon-lit streets, slightly drunk on laughter, love, and life. Back at the apartment, inhibitions lowered, they tumbled into bed together. Limbs intertwined, Evie and Noah got lost in passion, feeling like the past 3 years had disappeared. Lying blissfully entwined afterward, Evie knew Noah had truly come home. The heartache, fear, and distance had faded away. Starting their lives together in this vibrant city no longer seemed daunting. As long as they had each other, the possibilities were endless. Evie gently brushed the hair from Noah's face as he slept, his breathing relaxed and peaceful. The future was still uncertain, but they would build their new beginnings together. The first few months after Noah moved home brought exciting changes for Evie and Noah. But as real life settled in, some harsh realities began to surface. Noah's adjustment issues from the war that had seemed to disappear came raging back without warning. Plagued by nightmares of combat, he would wake up in cold sweats, yelling out in fear. Other nights, Evie would be startled awake by Noah's fists flailing as he tried to protect himself from imagined attackers. When he accidentally hit her shoulder one night, she knew these PTSD episodes had become dangerous. Her heart broke seeing him in such anguish. She suggested Noah go to the VA for help, but he insisted he could handle it alone. They began arguing as Evie pushed him to get treatment while Noah refused. "I don't need doctors poking at my brain," Noah shouted defensively after a heated late-night fight. "Keeping it bottled up won't help either," Evie countered, trying to stay calm. Noah's expression darkened. "You have no idea what I've been through. Don't tell me how to deal with it." He stormed out of the apartment, leaving Evie in shocked silence. She knew he was in pain, but she also couldn't continue to endure his verbal lashings. Was this war trauma going to drive an irreparable wedge between them? Evie cradled her throbbing shoulder as tears streamed down her face. Their relationship had been through so much already. Were they about to survive the long separation of war only to have the aftereffects destroy them in the end? She stared forlornly around their little apartment that just weeks ago had been so full of hope. They had to find a way to work through this together, or they would both continue spiraling down this destructive path. The blazing fight finally pushed Noah to get help. Though still reluctant, he began seeing a therapist at the VA center downtown. The sessions allowed Noah to open up about his traumatic experiences and get coping strategies. Evie joined him at several appointments for couples counseling. Sitting together in the cozy office, they talked through their communication issues. The therapist gave them tools to fight fair and express feelings constructively. At home, Evie was patient and understanding when Noah had episodes. He willingly accepted comfort from her instead of lashing out. He in turn learned how to calmly reassure Evie after his nightmares disturbed her sleep. Their relationship was tested, but the desire to heal together made them stronger. Each challenge they faced brought new depth to their bond. Evie and Noah chose to cling to each other rather than let the pain drive them apart. On a crisp fall morning, they sat sipping coffee together by the open window. Noah reached for Evie's hand. "Thank you for not giving up on me, on us," he said softly. Evie squeezed his hand. "I'll never give up. I'm with you for the long haul, through the ups and downs." Noah kissed her gently, the golden autumn sun bathing them in hope. There would still be hard days, but they had weathered the worst. Now they could look forward to their future, knowing their relationship was resilient enough to overcome anything. Evie zipped up her boots and wrapped a scarf around her neck, bracing herself for the winter chill. It was a sparkling December morning, 2 weeks before Christmas. "Ready for an adventure?" Noah asked with a mysterious grin. He had planned a whole day of surprises just for the two of them. Their first stop was ice skating at Rockefeller Center, gliding over the glistening rink hand in hand. Next was a horse-drawn carriage ride through Central Park, bundled under cozy blankets. Over lunch at a quaint cafe, Noah presented Evie with plane tickets for a trip to Paris in the spring. "It's somewhere we've always wanted to go together," he said. Evie threw her arms around his neck, overjoyed. As the sun set, they stood on the pier in Brooklyn Heights, watching the lights come on across the river in Manhattan. "One more surprise," Noah whispered, leading her away. They emerged from the subway in Times Square. "Close your eyes," Noah instructed. He guided her through the bustling crowds, the air buzzing with excitement. "Okay, open." Evie's eyes flew open. They were standing in front of the enormous Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center, its multicolored lights casting a magical glow. Evie turned to Noah, about to express her wonder, when she saw him down on one knee. "My darling Evie," he began, pulling out a ring. "You are my guiding light. Would you do me the honor of being my wife?" Evie clasped her hands to her mouth, choking back joyful sobs. "Yes," she cried. "A million times, yes." Noah swept her into his arms as cheers erupted around them. With a deep kiss, the city and the future were bright with promise once more. Evie stood in front of the floor-length mirror, smoothing the lace of her gown. After months of eager planning, her wedding day to Noah had arrived. It was a crisp January morning, the city blanketed in fresh snow. Evie gazed out at the skyline from their apartment one last time before heading to the venue. The ceremony took place in Central Park, flakes drifting down as they recited heartfelt vows. They promised to love each other through life's joys and trials. As the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, the small group of loved ones cheered. The reception was held at a glamorous hotel ballroom. Twinkling lights and romantic blooms transformed the space into a winter wonderland. Speeches and toasts were filled with laughter and nostalgic stories of the couple's journey. At the reception's end, Evie tossed her bouquet, which was caught by her beaming best friend. She hugged her tearful mom, so happy to see her daughter's bliss. Noah twirled Evie gracefully around the dance floor before sweeping her into a dramatic dip and kiss. The festivities concluded with a flurry of bubbly goodbyes as the new couple departed for Paris. Settling into their suite with breathtaking views of the Eiffel Tower, Mr. and Mrs. Wyatt were reminded of that fateful night in New York when their love was reunited. Though unsure what the future held, they knew that together they could conquer anything. Strolling along the Seine hand in hand the next morning, Evie rested her head on Noah's shoulder. She was thankful they had finally gotten their epic romance with a happy ending. This was just the start of their new life journey full of joy and possibility.